Gregory Mahalik, FTH 212. March the 21st, right here we have our PSA dagger. Essentially, it's a Gen 3 Glock. It's kind of PSA, Palmetto States Armory's version, their clone of a Glock. As you can see, it's free and clear with the barrel here. No ammo in the chamber as well. Here's a slide, springs, and our parts kit. It's a firearm that we're going to use for the next 5 weeks to do work on. For the schematic for this firearm, it's in the owner's manual that came with the kit. It's on page 30 and 31. Here's our schematics with our components. Here's a schematic breakdown. I always like to use the manufacturer's documentation. If you find stuff just on willy-nilly websites online, it can potentially have false information or altered material. So I always like to reference the manufacturer stuff as much as I find the opportunity to use. So for the part two, what are some of the tools discussed in this modules lecture that you would need to disassemble a firearm? Some pins and possibly a small, light saw-faced hammer to help drive some pins out if you have some binding in there. Some other special tools for the front sight, some other tools that might be particular to Glocks. I'm not very familiar with the Glock platform, so this is going to definitely be a lot of learning as I go on if there's any special tools or stuff required for it. On the tools that we use to take measurements to disassemble the firearm: micrometers, dial calipers, rulers, measuring the barrel length, rifling the barrel, checking headspace. That'll be another measurement tool that we could utilize if we have maybe an issues with material in the polymer. So let's say we got a firearm that's not operating right, and we've determined that it could potentially be in the slower. Measuring our polymer to make sure we don't have a warp, a bulge in it, or in machine surfaces that are not even. What are some tools needed for this platform not discussed in the module lecture? These standard tools are proprietary tools. They're pretty standard because they're not a Glock tool. We got our Tanner Liner kit tool here that came with the curricular material, as well as our Glock front sight tools. You can see it's from CM Tools. It's not proprietary to Glock manufacturing, but it is specific to use on Glock platforms. Components you believe we need extra finesse. If so, why do you feel this way? What happened if the finesse was not used in disassembling these components or assemblies? Anytime we're working on firearms, we need to use finesse. I just actually got done right before this putting an LC Smith side-by-side field grade back together from 1970s. Definitely was a lot of finesse in that firearm. A lot of stuff that was hand-fitted. Same with any of these firearms, pistols, revolvers, ARs, use finesse. If you start having to really torque or beat on something, something's probably not going together right. Take a break, step away. Components on here: fitting springs, internal, fitting your ejectors in your slide, putting that back striker plate on. As you're getting it fit down here, you can bind springs and stuff up. So take your time, make sure everything's in its right area where it should be as you push those components into their home. Are there any components you feel would cause you frustration to remove? That rear striker plate, I've had to do that on other firearms before. Definitely is tricky to make sure as you pull it, you hold and capture the springs in so they don't go pinging flying across the room. I don't know much on these Glock internals, but I'm assuming there's probably going to be a couple here inside that might be a little frustration to remove or to get back in their set areas. Are there any components could be easily lost? Yeah, there's some very small springs in here. There's some small roll pins, some small, looks like potentially maybe some set screws. So definitely some components that are easy to get lost. How I prevent those from getting lost is I just use little small bowls, small cups. I put them small components in there to where they don't roll off the bench. They're not real likely. I set them up away to where it's not in my immediate work area, where the likelihood of knocking them over is very limited. And I've got a wall back here at the back of my bench so they can't fall off the back side of the bench, as well as each inside of the bench has got a wall. So the only area they could roll is towards me. Firearm model you choose contain any components or only a few, and what does this mean for gunsmiths that will be assembling the firearm? If I think I counted 43 parts on the internal of this, so it contains a couple. It's got a few. For the gunsmith, just make sure you put the right parts in the right component. Don't forget parts, and don't lose your parts. All right, that concludes the 8 questions for part 2 and part 1 of the firearm and what schematics do we have for this week's lecture. Looking forward to next week. Thank you.